Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us the final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
On this episode of Let's Find Out, our guest has a diverse background that encompasses psychology, addictions, rock journalism, and the paranormal. In his new book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, he delves into the intriguing world of Bigfoot, embracing interdimensional theories, mass hallucinations. He challenges traditional beliefs about Bigfoot and encourages readers to embrace the seemingly impossible. All this plus more. Please welcome our new friend, author of the book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, Maxim Furek. Maxim, my friend, welcome to Let's Find Out. It's a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, thanks, Diego. This is awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to having a nice conversation about, whatever, maybe Bigfoot and maybe, other cryptids. But yeah, this is great. Really glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here because speaking earlier in the pre-interview, we can probably go for hours. I could do like a 10-part series on what you've done. Not only that, but the books you've written, rock journalism, and talking about rock journalism. It can't get no more rock and roll than your name, man. This is awesome. Maxim Furek, man. I kind of feel like it does not get any more rock and roll than that.
I would listen to this. I was named after my Ukrainian grandfather, Maxim, who came over here to the States. He heard that the streets of America were paved in gold. So, the other one named after my other grandfather, Vencel, and he was Czechoslovakian. So it was Maxim Vencel Furek, which of course nobody ever says and nobody ever did, but it's Maxim or Max. So that's my background. But it's great. But as a kid, I had to live through the kids, calling me Maxi Waxy. So that's I got through that. So but everything's good.
Shoot. There was actually a record store chain in Northern Virginia called Waxy Maxie's.
Okay.
And, It was very popular at one point back when they used to sell records and CDs in stores. I wanted to try to find out how I was going to start this show because I know you've done a lot of other podcasts and I've kind of cheated a little bit. I listened to some of them, a lot of great stuff out there. And I'm like, where do I start? And how do I not bore you since you've done so many of them? And we're going to start a little bit different. Let's talk about this. In the music scene, you've been a rock journalist for a very long time. And I'm a big fan of music. I come to the mid 70s. I had the glam rock. I had the hair. I had the earrings. I had the rave hairspray. I got into the thrash, the death metal, and I still love all of it. Now, when I got older, I started learning about other bands and appreciating other styles of music as one progresses in life. Things kind of change, but you're always going to go to your first love. For me, it was hard rock.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, word traveled very slowly. In order for you to learn about new bands or that were not on MTV, you have to go to the record store. Sometimes the used record stores were the best places to go. Even a Goodwill, every once in a while, you get somebody would have donated a whole pile of 8-tracks, and you just grab them, and hopefully your 8-track player still plays, and you play them. Which brings me, because that was very long-winded, and I apologize, to something I've never heard before, and I don't understand why I have not, about the worst song in the world. And I did not want to not do the show and not ask you the question. So let's talk about that. Somebody Else's Dream, Dakota and the Boys, and Timothy. Because are we talking? Is it the worst song in the world because the music was terrible? I'm assuming from the way things are is about the subject matter of this song.
Yeah, pretty much the subject matter. Yeah, you're talking about Timothy, released in 1971 by a group called The Boys, Buoys. So I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania. I'm from the hard coal area, anthracite coal. And these folks were, all the immigrants that came over there, they were like indentured servants. They worked hard. We had breaker boys, little kids that were maybe 10 years old, that they sent down into the mines to work. I mean, and back then in the United States, we had laws protecting animals before we had laws protecting children. So northeastern Pennsylvania with their coal mines, I mean, there's a real horrible legacy of, exploiting minors and children. So, but anyway, that's my background, but, where I came from. But anyway, the song Timothy in 71 was the highest charting song by an act in northeastern Pennsylvania. So as a rock journalist, I had to write a book about it. So I finished it during the pandemic, because during the pandemic, everybody was going crazy. The walls were closing in, so rather than resorting to drugs and alcohol, I decided to write this book. But when I was writing this book about the song Timothy, the Timothy was written by Rupert Holmes, the Pina Colada Man. Timothy was about cannibalism in a mine. So that was just a gross thing. When people finally heard the lyrics and figured it out, God, what have I done? There was that yuck factor. So the song Timothy went up the charts because it had this intrigue. It was about cannibalism. It was disgusting to a lot of people, but it had a nice driving, like sort of CCR sound. So everything worked. When I was doing the research, I found out that Shepton, a mine disaster back here from 1963, had the same thing. 3 guys were entombed for 2 weeks. Only 2 came out. There were allegations of cannibalism back then as there are now today. So the song Timothy and Shepton, had a parallel course. But with Shepton, there were cases of out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and afterlife experiences. Pope John the 23rd had died in June of 1963. Shepton took place in August of 63. The Pope was dead, and he appeared to them as an apparition. Pope John the 23rd was canonized in 2014, and Vatican scholars believe that Shepton was one of his miracles. So, believe it or not, but I mean, Shepton had it all. The miracle, the cannibalism, the miracle by Pope John the 23rd, alien creatures, spirit guides, creatures. They saw things in pure black. Just a weird story. And in 2016, when I wrote that book on the Shepton mythology, that was the one that opened up the door for me and got me into the paranormal. And Diego, I didn't go looking for it. I was a rock journalist, happy to write about the sociological aspects of rock and roll. But Shepton just snuck up, or the paranormal just snuck up on me and hit me on the head. And so here I am. But that was 9 years ago. And since then, I've had like a ton of books that I've written. And I just love the paranormal, like you, trying to find out the answer. What's the answer about Bigfoot? What's the answer about flying saucers? Demonology, the whole thing. I want to know.
It is very interesting that you use a term that you didn't go finding for the paranormal, but it kind of found you. Yep. Same thing kind of in my life, because I wasn't really looking for it. It just kind of almost landed on my lap. And going back to the mines, because I know that there's been several cases of miners being stuck, and sometimes some perish, some are saved. And with these that were there at that time, seeing that they saw these apparitions or something, how long were they down there in the mines?
Well, they were down there for 2 weeks.
Okay, and that's a pretty long time.
It's a long time, yeah. And you could say, when the book came out, they did a 90-minute segment on Mysterious Universe from Australia. And I got invited to podcasts. I got invited to expos. Just everything just opened up for me. It was like it was meant to be. I didn't look for it. I didn't knock on doors. It just came after me. But one of the things that happened was Skeptical Inquirer, and they wrote an article about Shepton. And at the end, just a little piece, they cited Occam's razor. And Occam's razor is sort of like a medieval way of gauging something. And they said that, well, you got to look at the most, the least or the common denominator. And they said that, well, these miners had to be hallucinating because they had sensory deprivation or they were drinking the sulfur water or whatever. And they just said that it was hallucinations. And I claimed that, no, you can't use Occam razor, in cases of the paranormal or the mystical, because these the supernatural, these are outside of the bounds of science. You can't define this in these simplistic terms because they're not simplistic. They are so far out there that we can't even define them scientifically. I mean, these may have scientific principles, but we don't know what they are now. We don't have that scientific cause and effect. So to just discount Shepton as being miners having hallucinations is, I think, just the wrong conclusion that the skeptical inquirer came to. But whatever, that's their job. Their job is to debunk every paranormal thing that comes in front of them. So but nonetheless, that gave Shepton even more notoriety. And Shepton's been just such a good seller, such a wonderful book for me. And again, that kicked it off. That was 2016. That was 9 years ago. So
wow, actually, it's not even that long ago. If you look at your whole career, and if I want to go back just a little bit more,
yeah,
because
and before you, just let me interject too. You're from West Virginia. I was talking about my backstory. Anthracite coal. And just how hard scrabble and how hardcore we were up there. I mean, just to survive. But here's the thing. In West Virginia, those coal miners had it worse than we do. They had to top off those buggies with even more coal, and they were mistreated. And that's why Mother Jones went down to West Virginia to organize, because it was so bad for the West Virginians. It was bad for the Pennsylvania boys, but it was even worse for you guys. So that's the name of that tune, Mother Jones. What a hero!
Yeah, and miners, very important part of our world. I mean, they got the hardest job, and without doing what they do, we would have a really hard time living very comfortably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I can't imagine going down. I mean, up here we have all kinds of coal mine tours, and I've done a whole bunch of the tours. But man, I wouldn't want to have to go down there and work down there, and I don't have it in me. So it takes a strong kind of person, to do that.
Absolutely. And it's like being stuck down there's not even part of the worst problems you'll get from being a miner for so many years. But going back to the rock journalism, because I think sometimes things can be an act or it can be true to life. There's been a lot of stories, and who knows whether true or not, a lot of connection between rock and roll and the paranormal or the occult. During your years as being a rock journalism, did you encounter, you don't have to name the artists, where they were kind of heavily involved, either occult or paranormal, and that helped influence their music writing or anything like that?
No, I haven't. I'm a former addiction specialist. I worked as a psychologist, and specifically in addictions, and I developed a real affinity for emerging drugs of abuse. Not just heroin and cocaine, but like bath salts, designer drugs, MDMA, methylene deoxymethamphetamine, Molly, ecstasy, all of that stuff, and ketamine, and just drugs that, the effects of these drugs are just like incredible what they do. They all promise euphoria. And a lot of times, as you get so overamped that you become psychotic, you become paranoid and psychotic. So that's what I came across. What I came across more than anything else, I coined a term called celebrity blood voyeurism. And that's the fact that the public sort of gets off. We get really titillated in watching people like Amy Winehouse, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Michael Jackson, go down that rabbit hole of drugs, and the reason for that, they can't handle the fame. So they do the drugs, they do the excessive things, and it catches up with everybody. You can't, Steven Tyler of Aerosmith said that fame is like 1,000 chickens pecking at you at the same time. And he was a heroin addict. He lost his job, his house, his wife, his phone, everything. He's out on the streets, and he's saying everything's okay. You're at the point where it doesn't matter. You just lost another thing. And I know in addictions, they say, well, once you hit bottom, you start getting into recovery. Well, that's not true. A lot of people can hit bottom and just live there, like it there. Doesn't matter. It's almost like screw the world. I'm going to do my own thing. So anyway, no, I didn't see so much the occult and the paranormal, but I did see the substance abuse. As a rock journalist, some of the things I did was, other than all these bands that were on the scene, going to fairs and different concerts, different events, I got all these free tickets for concerts. I've seen a million concerts, free. But I was able to interview Hall & Oates in Boulder, Colorado, 45-minute interview in a room reserved for just in case. The other one that was notable, I interviewed Wendy O. Williams and the Plasmatics. And Wendy had all of these occult, devil-worshipping signs there. And Wendy O. Williams was a porno star. Her husband thought she could make more money as in heavy metal. So she would be there in this black leather dominatrix outfit with the spike heels and the pink and turquoise hair spiked up, and electrical tape across her nipples and all this stuff. And she was quite the sight. She would take a sledgehammer and then go and smash all these banks of TV sets. So this was back in the day, when this was like, I guess, old hat. It was like even before Alice Cooper, or maybe even around the same time. But anyway, we had a chance to hang out with her and talk to her. And she was this short, demure sweetheart. Totally different than what she was on stage. But she used that devil worshipping thing, in her act and everything. But it was just an act. But unfortunately, Wendy O. Williams ended up dead. She committed suicide. And I'm not exactly sure why. And maybe her ghosts just caught up to her. But I don't, if anybody that I crossed paths with was into the occult, I don't know about it, because I think that's something that they probably would have kept to themselves. But just addressing that just for a moment, I think a lot of these folks, what it is, it's not so much making a pact with the devil, but allowing yourself to be a hedonist and enjoying every single pleasure that's out there, whether it's heterosexual, homosexual, whatever that is, the drugs, the sex, all of that stuff. Just do as much as you want, and without any boundaries and parameters. And that's hedonism. And I don't think it gets any more. I don't know anymore. What's a good word for that? It's just like indulgent, excessive. Most of us human beings have boundaries and parameters. And I could go so far, but not this far. But with a hedonist, they don't. And people like Aleister Crowley, the Beast, it was, do, whatever felt good, just do it. That was his credo. And he was the hedonist. But even with Crowley, we say that he was a devil worshiper, but he was a hedonist. They would have these women dress up as nuns. They would have sex with these women. Would do the drugs, the opiate, the laudanum, with the alcohol and the opium. And, it was just orgies. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or sex, drugs, and whatever music they were listening to. So, you could call that being a pact with the devil, or you could just say doing whatever you want to do. So Aleister Crowley was like that. And even though he gets the bad rap of being, the Beast, 666 and all that, I kind of disagree. I just think it was a club like I'm trying to think of the name of the club in England where, anything goes. I'm blocking. I don't know. It'll come to me like in 10 minutes, but anyway.
Okay. At 3 in the morning, you'll think about it and you'll call me.
Yeah, I'll call you. So, but the other thing too, in my book, Co-Regent Hoodoo, I have a number of chapters there. I had interviewed Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they were the Roman Catholic demonologists from Connecticut. And I had met them in 1988 when they were on a 15-city tour, a book tour to promote their book, The Haunted. And that was based on the Schmerl haunting in northeastern Pennsylvania. That's in my backyard. So I spent time up there. I talked to people, and I met Ed and Lorraine, took pictures of them. And I know that you could probably see this, but can you see this?
Yes.
Ed and Lorraine, 1988. That's my shot. That's awesome. I took a whole bunch of shots of them and kept in touch with them over the years. And I would call Ed and say, Ed, how exactly did you do battle with those demons? And Ed Warren would say that he would go and invoke the spirit of Jesus Christ, of St. Michael the Archangel, and of Padre Pio. And if your listeners don't know about Padre Pio, I want to just say a few words about him if I could. But and then Ed Warren would do battle with the demon, using the crucifix and holy water. So, and you could say, well, I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe that evil exists. Well, go right ahead with that belief, because I think you're wrong. I think that the devil wants us to believe that he or she doesn't exist. So, you live your life and you write your chapter, but I warn people about getting too close, and I've been warned as well, but, I stay away from Ouija boards, from tarot cards, from seances, from that stuff. And I warn these kids that are going to these former mental institutions and prisons looking for the demon, be careful, buyer beware. I mean, keep on looking and you're going to find something. You're going to find that demon that's looking for somebody that's just as vulnerable as you. So, but I mean, I can't believe it. I mean, every place I go, there's these ghost hunters that have their spirit boxes that make noises when they encounter the spirit and all that. So, I don't know about that, but I hear about it. So.
And it's out there. And let me ask, have you ever been on an investigation?
No, I haven't, but I've heard things. And back home, there's this place called the Garrison Building. And this is kind of crazy, but the workers were there. And this Garrison Building had been closed for decades. Nobody's there, just real dusty. So they were doing something there on the bottom floor. And they saw a little boy. Now, there's on the second floor. There shouldn't be anybody there. So they called this guy. He was an electrician. And he had some heat sensing device. So they went into the thing, went up to the second floor, and they found a heat source approximately where the little boy was. So shouldn't have been there. There shouldn't have been anything there. If it was bats, cats, dogs, there would have been poop, there would have been scat, there would have been something, there would have been marks in the dust, dust, and there wasn't. And and this guy was a non-believer, and he told me, this guy named Jim told me this. I asked him, he told me about it, and then I asked him again. And so here's an example of some spirit in a empty building that shouldn't be there, but there was signs that he was. So I don't know what that is, but J. Allen Hynek talked about high strangeness. And so with this case, you had that elements of high strangeness. They saw a little boy, and then they saw the heat signature. Two things. I mean, that gets my attention. That shows me that there was something going on. So what that is, we'll put our heads together and figure out what that was. Was that a little boy crossing over to another dimension? A spirit that's been trapped in another world? Trying to send us a message. What? I mean, we don't know, but we could come up with some good plausible theories.
Yeah, it could be one of those cases where a spirit, because some of them are known for lying, could have been posing as a little child just to entice you to come up there. Who knows what could have done to you or not? Like you said, it's left up to interpretation what it could be.
Yeah, good point though. It could have been a malevolent spirit, out to do some harm. Yeah.
And then moving from Rogerlism, and then we're talking about paranormal. All right, I'm going to ask this question respectfully, of course.
Yeah.
Why Bigfoot?
Yeah. When I wrote my book, Coleridge and Hoodoo, in 2023. And Coleridge and Hoodoo, I mean, for some of your listeners, I mean, just, I'm talking about this book, but just jump on Amazon and just read some of the reviews. I mean, they're just like, they make my hair stand up. They're just so good. I mean, I tapped into something that I didn't realize, and people see it, people see it through other eyes, through another viewpoint. But Coleridge and Hoodoo is one of my best books. And I had 2 chapters there on Bigfoot. I had the Bigfoot hypotheses and the Bigfoot enigma. And I was just trying to figure out what this was. And after those 2 chapters, I said, wait a second, I didn't get anywhere close. I got to finish this. So I spent time working on the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. It was published by Hangar One, and it's doing really well. I'm getting invited to so many Bigfoot expos, as a guest speaker, and that's just a great thing. I'll be in Butler, Pennsylvania on April the 26th. It'll be at the 18th annual Butler Paranormal Conference. So I'll be talking about the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, and I'm going to be there with Kevin Paul and my good friend Stan Gordon. And Stan is the guy from Western Pennsylvania that's sort of like the keeper of the key. He's the one who writes down, he documents all these sightings with Bigfoot and flying saucers and orbs combined. So Stan Gordon is pretty much the guy that, and we're fortunate to have him in the neighborhood because he keeps those statistics. I mean, just amazing. So anyway, that was, so I decided to write a book, and I call it The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. It's a metaphor because there's been so many theories about what Bigfoot is. Neanderthal, Gigantopithecus, Australopithecus, a missing link, whatever, all of these things. And so I talk about all of those, take a look at that. And the search for the abominable snowman, the search for Yeti, or what the Russians call Almas, is pretty much the same as our Pacific Northwest Bigfoot, which is certainly about the same as the British Columbian Sasquatch. So, who knows? I mean, we may be talking about the same creature or variations of that creature, but again, we don't know because we don't have a body and we don't have DNA. And that's what's lacking. That's the missing piece. We have a lot of other aspects of high strangeness with the Sasquatchers, these people that go out into the woods looking. And for example, I mean, we have some proof that's significant, I think, but you have eyewitnesses, you have the smells. They smell this horrible stench, this fecal matter of rotten eggs or a wet dog. And in most cases, they have that. They hear the wood knocks. Sometimes stones are thrown at them. They see the structures of the wood, maybe meant to keep us away, maybe a warning. But the most convincing evidence are the footprints, the footcasts that are bigger than any bear or any human, with the way, with the size and also with the stride. So there's something there, but that something is not the proof that the scientific community is looking for. So unfortunately, so we keep on looking, because we believe. And all of us are like, we have a little bit of Indiana Jones in us. We're looking for that holy grail. We want to find it. I mean, we want to be the one to find that thing, just like, I mean, it's just amazing. But we're all, I think, the same on that journey. We're on a quest. We're trying to find something, trying to find some answers. And, what we do, Diego, on, podcasts like this, I mean, we try to figure out some terms and vocabulary and try to go and find a name for some of this stuff. So that's what we're doing. We're like wordsmiths, I mean, we're like verbal scientists, we're just trying to put the information together and come up with a name for it. I mean, what do you call that thing that you see in the sky that everybody's seeing,
Right. And, everybody can be speaking a different language, but we're all getting to the same subject matter, of course, with that. Because I think that, in my opinion, it's a little more difficult for the Bigfoot part. And I understand because a lot of people can see talking about something seen in the sky. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
One could say, well, it's a UFO. I got pictures, a little bit blurry. It looks like a disc, looks like that. But you could probably have more than one people witness this event. But when it comes to Bigfoot, it's usually not like a mass sighting. It's usually, if it's not a hiker or a camper or some unsuspecting person going through the woods, where either they hear one, smell one, or see one. And we're talking about, well, there's no body, no crime, right?
Yeah,
But
I've heard that. Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to see a body possibly, because once something, and we don't know how Bigfoot handles bodies. I don't know if they take them away,
Yeah.
or if they have burial rituals. We don't know. They could
Well,
have their own culture.
Neanderthal did, and maybe Bigfoot does. So that's
Right.
a good possibility.
And also, as we know, the forest or a jungle or whatever you want to call it, rainforest, the woods, the earth always takes back what it's hers. So it takes a while, things decompose pretty quickly. If it's not decomposing, well, if the bugs don't get you, scavengers don't get you, the earth will eventually sink to the ground.
Yeah. And that topic always comes up. I live down here in Florida right now, and there was one of these wild pigs that got struck by a car. It's on the side of the road. So, we're driving back and forth, going shopping or wherever, and I'm watching this pig decompose. It took about 2 weeks for the vultures, the turkey buzzards, to go and peck it away, and the bugs and everything else. 2 weeks for it to go and decompose. So it was just like a flat piece of skin. That's all that was left. So, in the forest, there's more predators and, more opportunity for that body to decompose or be taken away. Or, some people have said Bigfoot are cannibals. I mean, there's all the theories, all revolving around, why can't we see the body? So, good question. Good question. But my premise too is that, if it's not flesh and blood, then what is it? And I contend that, you got to look at some of the scientific possibilities. And one of them is the interdimensional theory that Bigfoot, as well as, and I call them flying saucers. I rarely use the word UAP, and I don't have to. I'm not a member of the Pentagon, so I don't have to say it.
Right.
But anyway, I think I see similarities between Bigfoot and flying saucers, and one of them is that I believe that they sort of shape shift in between dimensions. That's why with Bigfoot, they talk about bilocation or rapid transport, that you see this cryptid in front of you, then he's behind you. So they're able to do that. And Stan Gordon from Western Pennsylvania has documented that. I mean, people, like, for example, a typical Stan Gordon notation in one of his books with that Mr. and Mrs. Jones were going out to the barn to feed the cow, 6 o'clock at night, and there they see this Bigfoot emerging from an orb, or the saucer landing and 2 Bigfoot creatures coming out of it. So that happens a lot. That narrative doesn't change. The appearance of Bigfoot and the behavior of Bigfoot doesn't change. Bigfoot rarely, if ever, attacks people. Bigfoot seems to be very shy, very reclusive, walks away from us. It may be curious, but is not mean and savage. Back home in northeastern Pennsylvania, there was a friend of mine's was in law enforcement. He was a sheriff, gets a call at 11 o'clock at night. And this older gentleman who was leaving his dog out to take a leak sees this 11-foot creature and said it was a Bigfoot, but the guy wasn't afraid. And the reason he wasn't afraid was because Bigfoot had kind eyes. So that's what he talked about. Bigfoot had kind eyes. But they talk about Bigfoot gliding, not walking. They talk about Bigfoot emitting light from the eyes, not reflecting light from the eyes. They talk about the smell. In most cases that there's a smell, but there's also a perfumey-like smell, and then there's no smell at all. So we believe that Bigfoot uses the scent as a means of communication, mainly to chase people away. We believe that Bigfoot has paranormal abilities. We think that Bigfoot may be able to talk to us, telepathically. So there's all these things that I hear, and then whenever I talk to people from British Columbia, they believe that Bigfoot is their teacher, that they're the students, that Bigfoot teaches them things. So again, the closer you get to Pacific Northwest and British Columbia, I mean, the more fervid are the believers, the true believers. I mean, that's like the epicenter of Bigfootery. And what's interesting too, I spent time in Pennsylvania and Florida, and according to different researchers, and again, we don't have one special place that records all of the Bigfoot and UFO sightings, but a bunch of people believe that Pennsylvania's number 3 in sightings of Bigfoot, and other people believe that Florida is number 3 in these skunk ape sightings. But they all agree that it's California and Washington State that have the abundance of Bigfoot sightings, and so that's pretty interesting that that there's 3 or 4 states where they seems to be the norm. People I talked to down here in Florida, and I'm hooked up with a whole lot of Bigfoot people, but they believe that the majority of sightings happened in the 1970s, but because of development, these Bigfoots have gone down into the swamps, or they've gone up to Georgia. So that's the theory. And the Everglades is a 16-county area from Miami-Dade all the way up to Polk County. So there's plenty of places to hide. And then there's the Green Swamp. I live in Citrus County. There's the Green Swamp that's right to my east, and Sumter County, where they see a whole bunch of things there. So there's, where I'm close to where the action is. So, I go hiking a lot. I'm always looking for the skunk ape down here, and back in Pennsylvania, I'm looking for Bigfoot back there. So I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that at one point I'm going to see something, but we'll see. I know Rene Dahinden, one of the 4 horsemen of the Sasquatchery, he, after searching for 40 years, he never found anything. And he was talking about that. He said, I may never see anything, but, again, we look and we hope. And, so that's my story. I've seen flying saucers. And my Bigfoot experience was sort of interesting. It was like a 3-second thing. But last year, my wife and I were hiking in Pennsylvania. There's a place called the Riverlands, and it borders the Susquehanna River. It parallels the river. So usually this one trail is flooded. But when we were down there, the trail was dry. So we decided to go down the trail, see what we could see if there's any wildlife there. And I look ahead of me, and there's this black shape, this dark shape coming towards me. And my heart starts pounding, and this thing goes behind a tree, keeps on coming towards me. It had wide shoulders, and I'm thinking I'm looking at a Bigfoot. But this was like 1001, 1002, 1003, maybe 3 seconds, maybe 4. Here it was a woman wearing an oversized coat with those shoulder lapels, oversized shoulders, coming towards me. And, it wasn't a Bigfoot, it was this woman. But for, say, 3 seconds, I had a Bigfoot experience. I mean, I felt that awe, that wonder, that wonderful sensation. That's my story. It wasn't, and I suppose if I ever were to see a Bigfoot, that's probably the feeling that I would have. It would be a feeling of awe. And so the people that see Bigfoot, I can't, I can kind of relate to what their experience is, but I think some people are blessed with either a higher vibration or a higher sense of consciousness. They may be more perceptive than the rest of us. They may be more attuned to some of these paranormal things. So that may be what's happening. That may be why maybe, Diego, you can see things and hear things that I can't. So
yeah, we're all a little bit different, and which comes next question, because while it sounds like I'm being mean, I'm really not trying to be mean. It has nothing really to do with you and I, but all of us at the same time, with people who've experienced or believe, whether you're an experiencer with UFOs, the list goes on and on. A couple of things, actually. I got a little on a side tangent. Is there something wrong with us? Speaking from a medical perspective, are we fooling ourselves? Or, I mean, I know what I saw. You know what you saw. What's going on with us? What is? I mean, it's not a mass hallucination, but it's something.
Yeah, well, us human beings are always looking for the answer. We got to fill in the blanks. We're always searching. We're looking for that holy grail. So the paranormal, whether it's flying saucers, demons, cryptids, it's all the same. We're on that search, looking for that thing. We have a need for balance, or what psychologists would call homeostasis. And if there's a gap, if there's an emptiness, a vacuum in the question, in the landscape, we have to fill it with something. We confabulate. We make things up. So it's not that we're making things up, but we're saying, okay, this thing that we saw there may be an alien craft. So I mean, from what we know, from what the known information is, we try to go and fill that information into the blank until something better comes along. But we all do that. Is there anything wrong with us? Well, I don't know. I think it's a healthy, I call it a healthy obsession. We're just looking and we're talking. And, I mean, I love this stuff, and I love talking to fellow paranormal folks and trading theories about what might be out there. But no, I think it's a healthy pursuit. I don't see anything, wrong with it. One thing that was sort of unhealthy with me, I did this book, Flying Saucer Esoteric. That was my flying saucer book, published in 2023, the same year as Co-Region Hoodoo. Now, Co-Region Hoodoo took me a long, long time to finish it up. I mean, it took me a couple of years to put all that data together. But with Flying Saucer Esoteric, I was challenging myself to see if I could write a book in 100 days. It was totally ego-driven. I wanted to have 2 books published the same year, and I wanted to get something done in 100 days. I worked on Flying Saucer Esoteric morning, noon, and night. I was obsessed, compulsed. My wife never saw me. But I said that after 100 days, I was going to pull out and stop before I burn out. Well, it took me 97 days to complete it. It's a great book. I'm really proud of it. It was sort of like my version of microdosing, for those 97 days. But I got it done, and then I stopped. And I don't suggest that anybody do that, because it's really just like taking yourself to the wall. But I was obsessed, consumed with flying saucers. I wanted to find out what they were. I wanted to feel it, know it, feel that pulse. And I read everything I could about saucers. I had a ton of books, a ton of YouTube things. I mean, I talked to a bunch of people. I mean, I got the job done, and I'm so proud of that. 97 days, Flying Saucer Esoteric, and mission completed. But again, it was, I know people that microdose. I know the people that do psilocybin, and they do it to unleash creativity. And I'm, a little skeptical about doing that, because right now I got the cognition, and I got the, the brain channels, the synapses working. So I'm not going to go and mess that up with designer drugs or hallucinogens. So, and for guys like me, I don't need the psilocybin or the microdosing to get the job done. So, but Flying Saucer Esoteric, 97 days. And if you look at the book, there's in Roman numerals, there's a 97 there. It looks very cryptic. So, everybody's asking me what that 97's about. So that's it, 97 days on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So kind of crazy.
I'm glad you brought up the topic of UFOs, because sometimes I feel like I'm alone on this island. I do fully believe in UFOs one way or another, but I'm not completely sold on which race of the aliens they are, because everybody say, well, it's the Nordics, it's the Greys. It, to me, it doesn't matter. I just want to find out more about the subject.
Yeah.
Where am I going with this? Here's where I'm going. So the first big UFO thing in the United States, we can go back to the whole thing with Area 51. And I kind of think that's been beaten to death. And are there other events or stories that caught your eye that really even got you deeper into the UFO thing?
Yeah, quite a few. You know, first of all, I think that there's the connection between Bigfoot and UFOs. And one thing I'll say that with Kenneth Arnold in 1947, you know, that's the first time that we heard about flying saucers. You know, and Kenneth Arnold talked about flying discs, but the reporter got it wrong and called them flying saucers. But nonetheless, 1947, flying saucers got into our head, got into our national vocabulary, and it hasn't left. The same thing, correlation, 1958, the Humboldt Times in Northern California wrote about the California abominable snowman. And for the first time ever in print, they called it Bigfoot. They received over 1,000 letters from people that saying, yes, I believe in Bigfoot, or yes, I've seen it. This hit the wire services, just like Kenneth Arnold's flying saucer from 1947. In 1958, with the Humboldt Times Bigfoot thing, this just went around the world. I mean, it was on every wire service. So those two dates are important. The other thing with connections between Bigfoot and flying saucers, and getting back to your question in a long-winded way, 1967 was the Patterson-Gimlin film, and that's where they had a 58-second video of Patty, a female Bigfoot that walked, turned, and looked at Patterson, and then walked away. And that is the Holy Grail. That is probably the best significant proof that we have that Bigfoot exists. So that's the one thing that we always talk about. But on the other side, with the flying saucers, 2004, the Nimitz saucer, the Tic Tac video, they saw this thing that went back and forth, tremendous G-force, too powerful for a human being to withstand that G-force. It hovered, and at that time, the Pentagon had changed UFO to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. This sucker, 2004, hovered and then went down under the water. Pentagon changed the name, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So 2004 was one of those anomalies that have one of the 3% of the anomalies that are out there that we cannot find out. We cannot determine what they are. Ours, theirs, or, you know, extraterrestrial or interdimensional. And then in 2015, we had more sightings, Navy pilots who are shooting these videos. So that gets my eye, and that, I think that that's significant. But as we talk about Area 51 and we talk about Roswell, I believe that the Kecksburg crash in Western Pennsylvania in 1965, December 9th, I believe, 1965, was more valid than Roswell. I think that with Kecksburg, we had immediate witnesses that said, this is what I saw. Immediate witnesses that saw those military trucks taking out this huge acorn-like device, maybe covered with a tarp, and then taking it to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So we had all of that. We saw it on radar. It was tracked across numerous states in Canada. But then with Kecksburg, we had the Freedom of Information Act. And with all of the people that were trying, like Leslie Kean from New York Times, all the people that were trying to get information from the Freedom of Information Act, they found out that the FOIA documents were either redacted, where they were scrubbed out with a black pen, or they were missing. And they explained that around 1986, a whole bunch of these documents with Kecksburg were missing. They somehow got destroyed. So that was what the Freedom of Information Act. But numerous people have used the Freedom of Information Act to get these documents, and they're nowhere to be found. So, what's going on? I mean, whenever the government lies to us, whenever the government tries to hide things from us, we, rather than going to the scientific, it causes a ripple effect, and we go over to the pseudoscience. So we look at conspiracies, and the get to places that the government knows something and they're hiding it from us, and there's a conspiracy. We know that the government said that they wanted to be more transparent. They wanted to be more accountable. And so in July of 2023, they invited David Grush to come there. He was former military intelligence, and Grush said that he knows where the bodies are. He knows where the crashed vehicles are. He said that under the right circumstances, he will go and share that information with the right people. Well, that was July of 2023. So what's happened? I mean, has Grush been on your program, or have you gotten any information from this? I mean, I'm waiting, I'm being sarcastic, but I'm waiting, but nothing came of that.
We all are. It's almost like the classic dangling the carrot in front of the horse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we're the horse. Yeah. And then the other one, so that was July of 2023. And then in November of 2024, the same thing with Luis Elizondo. Same thing, former military intelligence. And Luis claims that he knows that the government knows something. The only dealio here is that, these they're whistleblowers, but with Elizondo, he was in Pennsylvania, he was in Philadelphia, charging $50 a head to hear him. And when he was doing his PowerPoint, the flying saucer that he showed, allegedly from Romania, was evidently something that somebody concocted, and then they reflected a chandelier and light on it, and it was a hoax. And Elizondo never really admitted to that, but his publicist thanked the public for being so diligent and for scrutinizing that and finding out that it was a hoax. So he sort of sidestepped the controversy, but he was caught. So I don't know, and I've talked to a number of people about that because they like Elizondo and they like what he represents. But this was one time that there was something that was totally wrong. So either he did it intentionally, or maybe his handlers, when they were doing that PowerPoint, maybe some people researched that and got the wrong video there, and he had to live with that. So I mean, I don't know, but that's a possibility.
That's totally possible, because in the kind of things that we're into, the research in the field, there's always a possibility that we're wrong, and that's okay. But sometimes it's hard to recover when, especially with the gentleman you just talked about, when the public really wants to believe what it is that you're bringing to the table, then, he's pulling a hoax. So it kind of kills it for everybody else. But it only takes one time for your whole research just to go down the tubes.
Yeah, and even with somebody like Bob Lazar, who claims that he was working there, I think at Area 51, and he was reverse engineering these craft, and he knows people that were injured doing that and all this stuff. And he was supposed to be in Las Vegas with the sports model. He was going to reveal this craft. But with Lazar, he said he graduated from MIT, and he didn't. So there was all this bogus background information. And a lot of people are saying, well, the government's trying to discredit him and all this. And I don't think so. I think that some of these people that have worked in some of these dark ops programs, stealth programs that we don't know anything about, I mean, they know. I mean, when you listen to David Grush, he talks in a language that you and I don't understand. He talks about these whatever his term for the non-human alien life forms. So, but anyway, he has his own terminology and seems to know what he's talking about. But again, nobody's coming forward with the proof, that we need. And it's been too long. I think that I wrote letters to a number of people who were involved in the government's, the congressional UFO hearings. I wrote a letter to Marco Rubio down here in Florida, and Chuck Schumer, and a number of people. The only one I wrote letters to 7 of them, and I wanted them to encourage David Grush to show his cards. If you know where the bodies are and the crafts are, show us, tell us, don't tease us. And Marco Rubio was the only one who responded. I got a letter from him, and then I was going to go and continue the correspondence, and then Marco got nominated as Secretary of State. So he's out of the flying saucer business, and he's now with the Trump administration. So, but anyway, that's that. But I think that all of your listeners, if they're really interested in getting close to the truth, they should contact their congressmen and women and demand answers to this thing. And I think that we got to hand it to MUFON, because I think MUFON's been working behind the scenes, encouraging their representatives to go and get the truth out there. So I think that MUFON's doing a great job and not taking credit for it, not getting the notoriety. So, I have good friends with MUFON in Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. And I think Fred Saliga might be your MUFON guy down there in West Virginia. Is that true? Do you know that name?
That does sound familiar, but I know there's a chapter. It's kind of far from me where they're at, but yeah, I knew one guy. He was in Philly. He was with MUFON. I can't believe I forgot his name. He'll kill me. He's the one that helped me out when I first started with the podcast. But yeah, great guy. Does solid work. Yeah, and I really believe in what he does. Jesse Peak, there you go. I don't
Jesse Peak. Okay, good. Okay, got it. Okay, yeah.
And but with that being said, and for the listeners of Let's Find Out, they want to learn more about you, not only about the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, but your other books. They want to learn about your journalism back when you were doing the rock and roll scene, and I think I'm going to pull this up while I'm here because it's a pretty good list of the books that you have. So with Shepton, Myth, Miracle, and Music, Flying Saucer Esoteric, The Altered States of UFOlogy, and Core Region Hoodoo, and of course, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. Where can they go find out, and where can they go get a copy of these books?
Yeah, well, you could find a copy on Amazon.com. My publishers, Hangar One, and also Beyond the Fray. You could buy books from them. Or also, if you want an autographed copy, check out my website, www.maximfurek.com, MAXIMFUREK, and contact me, and we'll work a deal. I'll get you an autographed copy, and I'll give you a good deal. But anyway. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The book I'm working on now is called Paranormal Apocalypse. Is this how it ends? And I look at the end times, and so anyway, I'm looking forward to completing that this summer, and think it's going to be a really good read. So, I'm really having fun with it.
It's going to definitely be on my to-do list to download and purchase the copies. Also, I'll get on MaximFurek.com and say, hey, man, I'll definitely want an autographed copy of that book.
And for your listeners, if anybody does purchase any of my books, please put in a review on Amazon.com. It really drives the algorithm. It really helps us starving authors. It's really one of the best things that a listener can do. We're always looking for those reviews, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, so they mean a lot to us.
Absolutely true, my friend. And once again, thank you for being on the show with us. And I'm looking forward, if you don't mind, because you're going to go to Pennsylvania, you're practically my neighbor. I'm going to look you up, and then we'll get together, discuss some more stuff for some coffee, and find a nice diner, have some hot cakes, and talk about it.
I'm looking forward, and the hash browns too, yeah. But if anybody's in the area, I'm going to be up in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday, April the 26th. It'll be the 18th annual Butler Paranormal Conference, and I'll be there with Stan Gordon and Kevin Paul, bunch of people, but it's going to be great. And they get a nice crowd. I'm going to be there with my books, and so check it out. Butler, Pennsylvania, August the 26th. So should be a lot of fun. Okay.
Thank you, my friend.
Let's find out with Diego, the power of Diego Mania.
All content for Let's Find Out is property of co-host Diego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, co-host Diego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.